Right at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean in Cape Town, Luxembourg-based satellite operator SES hosted its globally respected Industry Days earlier this month. The one-day event attracted 17 speakers and 12 exhibitors. With a history of 9 such events hosted in Luxembourg, this was the second in South Africa.
For us, it's a great forum to connect with our customers, but also connect with all our market partners to just develop new technology, bring forward certain concepts for satellite connectivity, and discuss and enhance them.
The first keynote speaker for the day was tasked with the topic Digitization and the Bank of the Future. And who better to answer the question, what will banking look like in the future, than former FNB CEO Michael Jordan.
It helps here to maybe understand some of the big trends, and these are all the Ds. The fact that a whole lot of the world is being digitized, it all becomes data. A lot of what's happening in tech then is deceptive, so we have a lot of things happening, but then they suddenly happen very fast. Everything from robotics to artificial intelligence has been around a very long time, 3D printing, but it's deceptive and then it suddenly happens. Then it becomes demonetized, i.e. the cost of a whole lot of things are becoming less and less. Many physical objects are being dematerialized, another D. So everything from a radio to a torch lamp to maps to books to CDs are being dematerialized as they're being digitized. And then ultimately what happens is they become democratized as more and more people get access to the internet and can trade with all these digital goods. So that's understanding those trends, I think, are very important from any business perspective. If your business is affected by digitization or dematerialization or can be democratized across the world, you really need to start thinking about it. But from a banking perspective, as I said, it's not clear that every bank, as we know it, will understand this and will migrate to that. There's room for a whole lot of other players. And of course, a whole lot of new services are enabled. And that's what we're going to talk about. What is driving this is, of course, that smartphones, these very, very powerful mini computers, are becoming cheaper and cheaper. I've just listed a lot of examples for under 600 Rand, which is actually really cheap. And also, as you know, the behavior of upgrading to a new phone about every 2 years means that lots of phones that are still perfectly capable are being handed down. So what used to be a barrier to entry now just means that lots and lots more phones are going into the hands of consumers out there. And in Africa, this is the year where smartphones are overtaking feature phones. And so this is the very last year that the majority used to be on mobile with the old type of phones. By 2020, which is not that far ahead into the future, another 525 million smartphones will be sold. Now, this is quite staggering if you think of the fact that in the year 2000, only 6% of the world had access to the internet. And by 2020, it'll be 66%. So that's 11 times the amount of people that had it only a couple of years ago. And with that, it's a whole lot of new minds that are able to contribute to the internet, to the world, and take knowledge out of it. There recently was a story about an Indian kid who solved a riddle, not a riddle, a mathematical problem that 2 universities in America couldn't solve, Yale and Harvard. Or another kid whose mom got cancer and he Googled a solution. He found a cure for that particular cancer that medical science hadn't yet done. So this is the remarkable thing when another 500,000 people join the internet. In that, and these will be statistics known to you, it's not really voice that's going to grow. You can see the growth of the voice at the bottom, and that mobile data traffic will grow 15 times. This is just put it in another way in, I think, petabytes. So in 2015, voice will be 10 petabytes a month. By 2021, it'll be 15 times that amount. But the incredible growth of 15 times will be in data. And obviously, 2G and 3G will go down, and things like 5G will grow. And some of you may know that as an entrepreneur, I'm even going to try my hand a little bit at building out a 5G network in South Africa, basically trying to go where the puck is going. What does banking therefore look like in the digital age? I'll give you some things that I think will happen. The one is the digitization of banking, taking everything to data, changes all the traditional market structures, and it creates lots of hybrid business models. It's possible that you have a telco and banking app that is one on your phone, for example. It's It's also possible that a whole of these services are going to be split. Payments separate from investments, separate from international transfers. So it's a whole, you just have to think about this very differently. Uber and Airbnb scaled up traditional ride sharing and subletting to scale. But now what are they? Are they taxi companies? Are they hotel companies? Or are they something completely different? It's rather that you look at the point of need of the customer and you innovate around them than thinking about traditional banking. Would it be possible that banking becomes free? I think so. And for me, it's quite amazing that two of the most valuable companies on the New York Stock Exchange actually offer their services for free. You know that I'm talking about Facebook and Google. Yet they found other ways of monetizing it. And if you think of the richness of data that banking customers provide, you should really be able to offer banking for free and monetize it in different ways. So the future of banking is mobile, and banks will compete. There'll be a lot more sharing, and I think there's room for a whole lot of sharing between telcos and banks. If you ask me why it hasn't happened yet, I think it's because things have been going too well in the telco world. And there's maybe this sense of we can just develop it ourselves, and we don't need the banks for it. But increasingly, you will see telcos trying to do banking and banks trying to do telcos. There'll be mergers, or there'll be MVNOs on either side. It's just a matter of time until that customer relationship is exploited that way. Question, what are some of the banking services of the future? There are many. Let me just give you some examples. Amazon and MasterCard will soon allow you to authenticate a transfer via selfie. Okay? That's pretty cool. Take a picture. People like selfies. It could also be with geolocation just to prove that you're where it happens. Depositing checks via your phone. So you'll get a check, take a picture of it, and the money will be there immediately. I think this will happen. I also have to laugh at this, by the way, because checks are so last century. Instead of automating checks, we should just jump completely into electronic payment systems. But checks are still a very big part of functionality in big countries like the States. So this will happen. Pay an invoice by taking a picture of it. Okay, that's quite easy. Somebody sends you a mail, take a picture, press the button, and maybe that can also then become part of your bookkeeping system. So remember, all those transactions that go through bank accounts can all immediately go to an income statement, cash flow statement, and a balance sheet, helping people to go online for free. So bookkeeping will become free with banks and telcos. Bring your own device. How's this for a service? You don't even need to go to an ATM and have a screen there. You can actually just connect your phone, and the traditional ATM screen could be on your phone. You can say cash withdrawal or want to make a payment, whatever it is. So you bring your own device to the ATM. Voice assistants, this is not just in the future. I said Siri allows you to make payments through PayPal to 7 countries. UK Santander Bank has a voice assistant similar to Siri. So you can ask questions like, how much did I spend last night? Or how much did my wife spend last night? And when's my next debit order? I've lost my card. When did I last use it? So the use of chatbots for banking services. Making payments at many retailers by just swiping your phone, so that's definitely going to happen. I mean, lots of fights about standards and NFC and how it's going to work. But as long as it's easier, as long as it doesn't take as long. I mean, I'm irritated still when I go to supermarkets and I swipe and put in my PIN, and then they ask me to sign as well. Why have you entered your PIN? Anyway, so every few seconds they can save on a customer in a Walmart or a big retailer. There's extra cash for the retailer, and it's easier for the consumer. Wearables, clearly, I see people doing it already, banking on the phone, or seeing confirmations that money has come in, or buying or selling shares, and it all can happen just on a wearable. And of course, live chat, 24/7 problem resolution, the craziest thing that we have banks that open at 9 and close at 3 and aren't open on Saturdays and Sundays and so on. It'll become a service just like every other app on the internet. Banking will be disrupted. I am a little bit amazed that it hasn't been disrupted more. It probably hasn't because banks have quite successfully integrated some of these things that they see happening into their system. But that pace of change is only going to be quicker, and the massive cost cuts that banks would have to do to compete against nimble fintechs that are often going to enter this market at very low cost, if not zero cost, I don't think the banking system globally has fully yet stomached the implications thereof.
Speaking about mobile technology was Zunaid Bulbulia, who worked for MTN for 22 years, during which time, he says, he was the poster boy for the idea that technology will set you free.
The good old days, in my opinion, from a technology point of view, are pretty much behind us. I think You know, it's clear that as someone who grew up in the 90s, in the great days of telco, that those days are gone. We were able to grab large parts of Africa. I mean, that's the MTN, that is the MTN story. We went where angels fear to tread, where most investors were absolutely not wanting to put their money, and we said we'd put our investments in those countries. And the reality is that in those early days, as long as you were able to deploy the technology, you had a passport to make money. Absolutely. I mean, you almost had to be falling over yourself in incompetence not to make money. And if you had access to capital, if you had access to cash, you were king, absolutely king. And those who were brave enough to commit the dollar, to commit the rand, in the days when the rand was worth something, if you were committed to making that investment, you pretty much made a return. But it was a vicious cycle, because only those who invested then made enough money to reinvest. And this technology game is quite unforgiving because it keeps wanting more investment. You have to keep investing to stay ahead of the curve. You have more need for capacity, more need for carrying more packets of data across your network. So the cycle is unrelenting and requires constant investment. What I think has now come is this concept of network neutrality, where every network out there has got access to exactly the same technology. Everyone's got it. They've all got, there's equalization of the competitive advantage that technology used to provide, certainly in the mobile business. It might be different in satellite, it may be different in some of the other sectors, but in mobile, virtually every operator in every country, certainly in the African countries that I used to manage, all had access to the same technology at the same time, and therefore the ability for technology to provide differentiation had vanished. So you can't differentiate on the basis of technology any longer, and what's happening is that the revenue base that you are used to is being constantly eroded by this irrational competition that's taking place in an effort to create scale and to create volume.
Craig Wilson, the editor of Stuff magazine, brought up the topic of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Machine learning refers to computers teaching themselves to grow and change when exposed to new data.
And then we have this robot lawyer, which is another great use of the sort of potentials of machine learning. This was a 19-year-old university student. He's English, but he's studying at Stanford. And basically he wrote a little program that would generate a query about a parking ticket. It was because he and a bunch of his friends couldn't afford to pay their parking tickets, and so he tried to get them out of it. It's ended up having 170,000 parking tickets cancelled in London and New York. But he subsequently he was getting all these queries about other things, that now he's doing something with a little bit of sort of more social responsibility. So what he's doing now is helping people who are about to be evicted write letters to the sort of respective housing departments to make sure that doesn't happen. So really he's helping to sort of cut down homelessness. And as he said, this was an unexpected consequence. He built this one thing and then discovered that it was terribly useful for something else. Which brings me to something Michael Jordan, I mean, the man's just so quotable and full of great one-liners, as we've seen all day. And I thought this one was particularly telling, right? Then this is the idea that if you're not going to eat your own lunch or try to figure out how someone else will do it, they'll almost certainly do it for you. And we've got another good one, because this is how, I'm told you wrap these sorts of things up, is we always overestimate the change in the short term, right? But not the change in the longer term. And we shouldn't be lulled into inaction. And talking about inaction, as you're all satellite or related to satellite in some way, I have to tell you I have a deep fear about satellite connectivity. And that is that the more I travel, the more I see it becoming commonplace on planes, right? And And this is deeply terrifying because anyone who's been stuck in a queue with someone ostensibly talking to their investment banker will know how painful it can be to listen to other people's conversations. And planes, for the time being, to a large extent, remain this sanctum where we can get away from some of these distractions. So as much as I'm in favor of net neutrality, I'd really like to see things like Skype banned so that we find that they are not the worst thing that can happen on a plane.
We'll be back after a short break to look at more technologies and trends in the SATCOM sector. SES is one of the world's largest satellite providers with 65 medium Earth orbit or MEO satellites covering 99% of the globe. They partner with over 700 broadcasters linked to 7,400 TV channels internationally. Their customers and partners operate in fields of video, government, enterprise and mobility.
I think the trends in Africa is just to improve connectivity, is to find solutions together with industry, with customers, to reduce the cost, the delivery cost, reduce the cost of backhaul data. And then, of course, we also have to serve the increasing needs of connectivity, which will ultimately result in a multiplication of the bandwidth required. And that for us means to provide more and better satellite capacity or more efficient satellite capacity.
I think video in Africa has a lot of potential. There's a digitalization process that's started. We're at the beginning of that process. Everyone thinks it's terribly delayed, but what they forget is that in Europe, it took 6 years of preparation and 6 years of implementation to complete. So I would say Africa is absolutely on track. And that change from analog to digital will create a huge opportunity for new broadcasters to come into the market in Africa and to grow the number of households and the number of people that are watching TV channels across the continent.
In order to be able to address the vast African market, cost is of essence. We know that the majority of the consumer market in Africa is not able to pay for satellite VSAT equipment. First of all, the capital investment is too high. Even if the equipment is only costing $200 FOB, Europe or United States or Asia, doesn't matter. Before it ends up with the end consumer in Africa, it costs $700-800, and that's far too much. Number two is that these consumers are not able to subscribe to a recurring monthly fee, which costs them $20, $30, $40, $50, depending on the quality of service they want to get. So these are two reasons why you need to think about a different model. And the thing is, by 2020, there will be in Africa 500 million smartphones and handheld devices like tablet PCs. And all these smartphones and tablet PCs, they're all Wi-Fi enabled. So these people, one way or the other, they want to go to the internet. They want to be connected to the internet. They want to go have a Facebook profile, whatever they want. But they want to do that at the price they're able to pay. So you need to find a model that when the average African has $1, $2, $3 to spend, they can go somewhere and buy bandwidth for that amount of money. And that's typically what we're developing with Wi-Fi hotspots. So people within a Wi-Fi hotspot, they can connectivity for the amount of money they're really able to afford.
And Wi-Fi hotspots in rural areas, how do you establish that?
Yes, okay, well, we're already doing that today. So you know, the beauty of satellite is you can deploy it anywhere. You don't need any terrestrial connectivity, you need electricity. That's the minimum you need. But you can deploy it anywhere. It's as long as you can see the sky is not the limit anymore. So you can deploy it, and that's the beauty of satellite. We can, where 3G, 4G is not available, which is a large part of Africa, you can simply install a VSAT terminal with a Wi-Fi hotspot and serve a whole community. It's a difficult market because it's a market which is picking up slowly. And regulation is also a constraint in many aspects. Regulations where you have duties and levies accounted onto the equipment that's imported. So the governments need to understand that they need to deregulate it, because by connecting the people, by providing them internet access, bridging the digital divide, you're making people smarter. They can have access to education, to e-learning, to a lot of other things, and just increase the level of intelligence of these people. So I think it's an obligation from all of the governments throughout Africa.
We're basically providing satellite communication in Africa for almost 30 years. And we basically taking part of this revolution of communication in Africa and worldwide. We are demonstrating here the new modem, VSAT modem, that allows the mobile handset to receive data in a data rate that was never seen before. We can see here in this live demonstration right here in the speed test that we can see about over 60 megabit per second on this handset using satellite connectivity. This number was never seen not only in Africa but worldwide. So this is first time, and you are witnessing this first time as well. So we are proud to continue to support the communication of Africa. We're providing services to mobile operators in Africa in terms of allowing them to get access to the rural areas and the sub-metro areas, providing communication, voice and data to their subscribers. And also we are partnering with SES, who are hosting us here, in providing Facebook the Wi-Fi village concept in Africa. This is more or less what Gilat Network are doing.
So is it important for you to be here at this industry?
It's very important for us to be here in terms of learning what others are doing and in terms of educating the market about the new technologies that will eventually enable the consumers in Africa to get access to communication.
The simplest answer to tell why satellite is the best solution is the good old point of ubiquitous coverage. That is a beauty that has helped satellite to have tremendous success in other parts of the world. Somebody comes to us, whether it's broadcast, video broadcast or data, he switches onto a satellite transponder and he can be received everywhere in the wanted coverage territory. That's only something satellite can provide. For the customer or for the service provider, it means he has the 100% reach from day one.
We are key player on the European, African and Latin American market, delivering mostly LNBs to the TV operators and big distributors. Today we are on Industry Days Africa, presenting the very important revolutionary technology called DCSS, which stands for the Digital Channel Stacking System. This technology allows to connect more receivers to one single LNB. This revolution technology significantly allows to decrease the cost of the single collective installation, and is very advanced in terms of the providing content to the apartment. The African market is very open, very innovative-oriented market, and it's still market which develops, which belongs to the group of the emerging markets, and it's very sensitive on the technology which can significantly decrease the cost of the installation.
What we're demonstrating here today is the VOD via satellite product offering. The purpose of this is to have a video on demand capability in areas where you don't have internet connectivity, which would normally be needed for video on demand. So in this case, we make use of a broadcast satellite connection. So it's one-way connectivity only. But employing some clever technology in the back end, a carousel type of system where we broadcast chunks of videos, we're able to do a real video on demand experience for the end consumer without the need for internet connectivity.
Is satellite still as expensive, or is it getting more affordable?
It is getting more affordable because, yes, we also do our homework. We work together with industry to have more efficient coding and modulation schemes. So the latest we have been developing in the digital video broadcasting group, that's a standardization group, is the so-called DVB S2X technology. There's also progress in coding, the encoding of pictures. So there is a new HEVC, the high efficiency video coding standard, that just increases efficiency by 40 to 50%. The next big step we are undertaking is to launch satellite that make extensive use of frequency reuse. So reusing spectrum on various parts of the country or the continent, and this will have a further economical effect on the cost of satellite. So we are really working hard to bring those down.